So the love of one love of my life passes away. We go into lockdown. We're healing from that. You can't see your grandparents. You can't see your family. I just stayed in the kitchen, guys. I was just pumping everything.
Let's just make dombolo every day.
Let's just make dombolo every day.
Yeah. Hello, Wisdom and Wellness family. This conversation has been going on for the last, I think, 45 minutes. And I'm super, super excited to have Mmule Setati. Right? Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
I've been practicing the whole time because Brenda was like, why are you dragging the L's? Because like Mmule. And it's like, no, it's just two M's and one L.
100%.
She calls herself a food snob. She's an entrepreneur, dedicated mother and wife. And she believes our relationship with food is intertwined with our mental well-being. And as you know, she is an author now of a new cookbook, Feed My Tribe.
Hello, gorgeous.
Hello, gorgeous.
You look beautiful.
Thank you. So do you.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be now called an author?
Very surreal.
Yeah.
I think there are moments where I have to like pinch myself. So I was walking in Woolies the other day and I was just shopping and then I'm like, that's me.
No.
Wait, that's me.
Do you feel, do you like ever, and because when I had a magazine cover and it was on the shelves, I was just like, I don't look like what I look in the picture, so it's just awkward. So on your dress down days, do you feel like, people can't tell this is me?
They definitely can't recognize me. I remember at the store, I'm like, guys, this is my book. They're like, oh, hello. Don't say that out loud.
I have good days too.
Good days.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about, we have so much to talk about. I feel like you have such a colorful life and you let it out in like snippets. So today I am going to, yeah, that's what we're doing. We're digging. Tell me about the love of your life, Coco Stella.
Oh, the love of my life. May her soul rest in peace. So Stella is my maternal grandmother.
Yeah.
I love old people, but she was like the one old person who raised me. So my mom had me in high school, mom and dad were busy on the school grounds there. And then when they had me, they had to leave me with my grandmother, just carry on studying. And she basically raised me till my parents could, afford getting a house and moving out. That's the love of my life. I think she taught me everything about being a woman. When I think about a relationship between a child and a grandparent, that's literally my reference. Like, I want every person to experience that love that a grandparent has for a child, and she gave me that.
What is it about her or your memories of her that makes you refer to her as the love of your life?
So I refer to her as the love of my life because I remember how deeply impacted I was by her death. And I didn't realize then what an impact she had on my life until she died.
Sure.
And it felt like I lost a mother.
Sure.
So growing up, she was a Xhosa lady.
Yeah.
So very strict. I'm mixed here.
Okay.
I'm busy. Like
somewhere
there's a lot going on.
Okay. It's there.
So Xhosa grandmother, can you imagine that house? Like loud,
it's funny,
boisterous, it's funny, entertaining. But I mean, when I look back, I'm like, that lady didn't have much. She worked at a factory at Arenda. They used to make blankets.
Sure.
But every day, like, the meals were amazing. The warmth that she created in the house was amazing. The love that she shared with my father was amazing.
Yeah.
They passed away 7 months apart.
Wow. I always say that's like true love. When like the one partner passes and then, really? How often do you and your husband fight?
All the time.
Exactly. That is a strong, good marriage.
They fought all the time. I feel sorry for my grandfather because he was quite reserved and quiet, and my grandmother was
Ketile.
So, she was the love of my life because she'd give me lessons in like little spurts, and I'd literally take those away and sit back and think about them like, what is this lady talking about? I remember once in the kitchen when I was 12.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to learn how to cook. I'm in the kitchen and she's like, okay, come look at this. Don't touch anything, just look. And then as I started learning how to cook and I was doing it properly, she's like, you do know when you grow up, cooking isn't going to like define you as a woman. And I was like, hey, you took all this time to teach me how to cook. Now you're telling me this is not what I need to do. She's like, you'll learn. You'll understand one day. But just because you can cook, it doesn't mean that you're like pelele as a lady. But now I get it.
Sure, that's incredible. I think of my grandmother, and one of the lessons that stuck by me is giving. She was an extremely, this is my paternal grandmother, and she was a very giving woman. Like she gave everything. And so the lessons, like, you know, like what you say, like it's so subtle, and at the time you don't get it, but now you would have seen when you came in, I was panicking that you're not getting your coffee, right?
Yes.
It's like, why is it taking so long? Because that's what she taught me, that as soon as umuntu comes into the house, you offer them something to drink, you 100%. Offer them something to eat.
Yes.
A guest never leaves empty-handed. So outside that one lesson of being cooking is not what makes you, what other lesson do you think of now in your adult years that, okay, Ukoko left me with this?
It was exactly that. So feed my tribe, and the essence of it is my grandmother. So every time we're at my grandmother's house, I grew up in Mhlakeng. I don't know if you know it. It's a little township in the West Rand. And every single time there'd be people walking into the door. And that's how you know she was like a giver, and she was warm, you know, and she'd be like, these people are not my friends. Why do they keep coming back? And they'd keep coming back. But she was that. Like, you'd walk into the door. What do you need? You need water, you need food. There was always food on the stove. By the time you left, like, people would sit from 1 o'clock until 8 at night with my gran, and they'd be fed, and they'd, even now in her absence, they still come. They still come. They sit with us. Tina, and we're like, your friend is not here.
Don't know how to
sit with us the whole day. They'll sit with my mom. They'll sit with my kids. They'll just sit with us, because I think she created such a beautiful, like, welcoming home. That people felt welcomed. You know, so that's Feed My Tribe, and the messaging and the essence behind it is that she used to feed a tribe. Whether it was people she didn't know, people she knew, or us, which is her tribe.
Is your home like that?
It used to be, but now we have boundaries and stuff. You know? You can't just be like, hello, I'm around the corner. But yes, when people do come over, when I do host, it's that. In Sepedi, and I'm going to butcher it, but they have, my mother-in-law said, you have this thing where or something like that. But it's...
Is there such a thing?
Like, I feed people to a point where their stomachs are full, like stomachs, souls, everything is fed. And she's like, in Sepedi culture and in our khastadi, that's what we do. You know, as soon as they walk into a house, you fill their soul, you fill their stomachs, and she was like, you give me that sort of vibe. So
so you shared a story with Olwetu about, I think it was 3 months before lockdown with your son, right? And you were in the kitchen and you were trying to get his bottle, and he fell. And it was bigger than you thought it was, right? So I can imagine, and you will elaborate, in that moment at 3 months, not knowing whether your son will ever talk or ever walk, describe that moment in your life for me. And I'm asking about it because we're going to go into how the kitchen healed you.
Sure, you can imagine. Like, the moment for me was how we describe it with my therapist, a slap from God. It was a slap from God, a slap from the universe to wake up. And we all have those once, twice, how many other times we're going to get it in our lives. Some lessons harsher than most. So before that, as I said, business was crazy. It was so intense. Trying to run a business, trying to figure out what it is that you're actually doing half the time. As a business person, sometimes you're like, so you're in the business. I mean, the backstory behind it. So when we were on holiday in Barcelona, when my husband was studying, he actually got racially attacked. And that's where this whole thing just came together. It got racially attacked, and we're dealing with that. So we're dealing with the aftermath of that. I don't know if anyone's ever been in a situation that intense. But having to support someone in that. You're not in it. You're supporting someone.
And you have to empathize, and you don't get it. And
yes, you weren't in it, but you still have to be there and support, right? There's that. You have to support that. I had to support the business. Then I had a baby, and I had to support and understand that I postpartum. And then just after our anniversary, so it was actually the next day after our anniversary, I remember the night before, I was dancing in the living room with Maruo, busy dancing, listening to music. It was just the three of us. Matteo had gone to my mom, And it was the three of us just enjoying this alone time. Wake up the next morning and, you know, if you've heard the story, making him milk, and I put him on the kitchen counter as we normally do.
Nothing strange, yeah.
But it shows you I wasn't operating in my present.
Sure.
Make him a bottle, put him on the counter. He can sit now. You know, I let him play with like a piece of paper. So that paper had dropped, or he was playing with it and he fell back.
Sure.
Right?
Off the counter.
Off the counter. So he drops, but there are chairs there. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe the chairs would have shielded him. So I get to my husband and I'm like, Maruo just fell. And he's like, did his head bang? What happened? I'm like, actually, I didn't hear a thing,
sure,
you know?
yeah.
Because in the moment he just started crying. And all I could hear was like, and my ears were ringing. And then I could hear his cries. And I'm like, okay, at least he's crying. There's a sound coming.
Yeah.
Look for blood. There was no blood. And I was like, okay, let's put him to sleep so you don't give a child any medicine and stuff.
Yeah.
You try not to put him to sleep.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's really early in the morning. He must go back to sleep. Goes to sleep. And the moments after were like, they happen so quickly. They happen so quickly. And, you know, I just sat there going, what is happening? Like, how is everything happening all at the same time?
Sure.
During the festive season when there are no doctors.
Sure.
You know, seeing my mother-in-law is a doctor.
Yeah.
And luckily that day she had to babysit.
Sure.
And she came into the house and she was like, she had tears running down her eyes. And she was like, you guys need to get to the hospital now. Get to the hospital. And
so for you, it was just Uwile and
for me, it was,
he'll be
he
fine.
fell.
Yeah.
But you know when you're like trying to see what's wrong with the child, he kept crying, and I'm like, okay, why are you crying? What's going on? A lot of people describe when their kids fall, they're like, he fell and he cried, and then you know he just had like a big
big
gunga and owie, and then we moved on. But he fell, and he didn't like. So he woke up. I woke him up. I'm like, no, he needs to wake up. So I woke him up, and he just kept crying.
Sure.
So his eyes weren't opening. His eyes weren't opening. But he kept crying. So I'm like, okay, you can respond, but why aren't you opening your eyes?
And this is like 3 months.
This is it. Yeah, he was 3 months.
3 or 6?
No, he was
3 months.
So he was born in July, December.
Oh,
5
okay.
months.
5 months, yeah.
And I kept saying, okay, something's wrong here. And she confirmed it when she came. So came, rushed to the hospital, and literally by the grace of God in the universe, we had this black neurosurgeon, Dr. Jalata.
Yeah.
One of the best in South Africa.
Sure.
And she was like, you're so lucky. Like, I wouldn't have been here. Sure. Christmas is 2 days away. We checked him in, and initially I thought, oh, they're going to tell me it's just a concoction, you'll be fine. But I remember the words sinking in. Like, they took him in for a scan. They had to take him in for a scan. He's crying, eh?
The whole time,
and
yeah.
I could actually remember, like, he actually was getting, like, dying by the moment, because he was going down at each moment that we're waiting for the doctor to come and give us results.
Sure.
So they come in and they're like, we did the scans. Your son is bleeding, like, in the brain. So he cracked his skull when he fell. And now he's got blood coming into the brain. You can imagine the moment of trauma. Like, you're trying to understand, what do you mean? What's a subdural hematoma? What are you talking about? You know, very technical terms. Everything's happening at the same time. My mother-in-law's going frantic. I'm going frantic. I'm like, okay, what do we do? What's happening? You know, does this mean he's going to die? And the moment, I think, for us that was like heartbreaking was when the neurosurgeon came in and said, listen, I can fix it, but he might not walk, talk, you know, not have proper mobility. And because he's 6 months, we never know. You can't know until
if
he's older.
Developing or not.
Because he hasn't started walking, talking at that age. And we literally was standing in the ICU, the NICU, and my husband fell to the ground. I just stood there like blank. And yeah, it was one of the most surreal moments. If you ever go through that, and I understood in that moment, like, our kids are not ours, and you're so blessed if you have a child that you've given birth to and is healthy, and has survived. You've survived through pregnancy. We take
it for granted.
Take it all for granted.
Yeah.
And in those moments, like, just sitting and praying, like, you had nothing else to do. You went into a coma. You had to go into surgery. The surgery happened. It was a movie, actually, like, to say the least. You had to go into surgery. And the moments after that were pretty surreal. just have family members coming in, and I'm like, why are you coming in? What are you here to do?
Yeah, sure.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
Very surreal. Every morning, so we couldn't sleep in ICU every morning. We had to wake up, go to the hospital.
This is your whole December.
This is now our anniversary is the 21st, 23rd of December. So from the 23rd till just after Christmas, 26th, we're literally going home. And you can imagine trying to go home and you're leaving your child in the hospital.
You literally go home, shower, come back.
No, you have to go home, sleep, try and sleep. Wake up. Every time I woke up that morning, I literally would wake up, go to the kitchen, I just have tears like flowing. Tears flowing. What are we doing? Okay, we're going to hospital. What if we get there and he's died? So you don't know. They don't give you an update. You have to get to hospital.
And find out what's happening.
You have to get to hospital and find out. And he woke up a day after Christmas. So he spent hospital on Christmas.
He only woke up a day after Christmas?
Yeah, he woke up a day on Boxing Day. They'd put him in a coma. So he woke up. And when he woke up, I remember, so he looked up and he looked around the room. And he said, Mama.
Oh.
And he said, Mama. And then they woke him up and they're like, okay, you need to feed him. I'm like, what? He's got like pipes and stuff going through him. So I had to feed him in the ICU.
Sure.
Go through those moments. And literally after that, Maruo, the soul. He literally, it was as if he woke up and nothing had happened. Yes. And nothing had happened. And the next few months we spent going to physio, through all these checkups just to see if he's okay. And everyone was like, this is like a miracle.
Sure.
If you hadn't come into hospital the moment you did,
things could have changed.
Been
what does his name mean?
Maruo means wealth.
Wealth.
Yeah.
And does he have another name?
Mmule. That's his grandmother's name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So now, obviously, during that time, you're not looking after you.
No.
You focused on baby and not eating.
Yeah.
How did you ever feel guilt that I did this to my son, and how have you dealt with that?
So at no point in the process did I feel guilt, which is something I spoke to my therapist about. Every mom, every doctor person would come up to me and say, you didn't do this, please. They'd come and be like, you didn't. And I'm like, actually, there's no point in which I thought I did this to him.
Yeah.
And I remember in hospital an uncle coming up and saying, don't ever for a second doubt yourself and your parenting skills or what had happened, because it's like holding a glass of water and it slips out. Things happen.
Yeah.
These things happen. And like I say, I took that as a message from God, a slap from God and the universe. I wasn't being present. After he was born, it was just going through the motions of, it was a go.
Yeah.
And then something happened, which all of us in the house had to wake up from.
Sure.
I'm
sure your home has never been the same since then.
It's never been the same since then. Yeah. No, life is not this. Life is not, it's not work. It's not
achievement.
Your depressment. It's not your achievement. It's not your marital It's none of that.
Sure.
Here's the moment here. And then the one biggest lesson that I got from it was our kids are not our kids. So I never suffered from guilt, because while I was in hospital, I read a quote by, I think his name is Khalil. And the poem is, our kids are not our kids. They're borrowed from God. And at any time, he could take them back and say, thanks. Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks for the job done.
Yeah.
I'm taking my kid back.
Sure.
And our job is to try and raise them as best as we can. Give them the purpose that God has served them for.
Yeah.
But other than, it's not our purpose for them. Yes, it's not, my expectations for him. It's, I have
God,
borrowed
what do you want?
I have borrowed you a child. And now I'm going to take him.
Sure.
So when I started understanding that concept, when I saw it almost happen to me, to say, hey, our kids are not our kids.
Sure.
Actually borrowed from God. And we need to appreciate every little moment that we get with them.
Yeah.
Because it could be taken away in any second.
Sure. Now, how did the kitchen heal you?
Then we come back. So Maruo come back from all the tests, few months in, and they say, okay, everything's cleared. He's fine. He just has to heal, Then lockdown happens. Oh,
immediately, 3 months after.
Lockdown happens in March, and I'm just like,
okay,
God,
what's next?
Wow. You didn't think it was a lot already?
Yeah.
Lockdown happens, and we have no food takeaways. We have like, you can't run away now. You can't run away from any problem. Whatever problems you had.
You must look it in the eye.
Sila.
Who's winning this one? Yeah, who's taking this one?
I always used to joke, it's here. No. There's nowhere
Time to
run.
face the music. Yeah.
We are all here in this house. Then it's time for me to cook. So I'm like, okay, let me get back into it. So Feed My Tribe had already been there. And for me, it was like a passion and creative project, right? Outside of Fruitel.
Yeah.
And then I sat down with my therapist and I was like, okay, I'm going to start creating. I'm going to start creating just to get this thing out of me, whatever it was. You know, people are sitting there going, do you feel guilty about this thing that happened? And I go, no, I actually don't feel guilt. I feel more appreciation for what I have.
For life, yeah.
For life, you know, for my kids, you know. And then I was like, let me cook. People were talking about, we don't know how to cook. We don't know how to do. Our marriages are going under. We just moved in. I'm a boyfriend. And I'm a pattern said, help us.
How?
And then I was like, let me start cooking and showing my recipes. So I got into the kitchen. I started cooking. Then I started involving the boys more. So I wanted to see and play with Maruo's mobilities also and just see if he was present and stuff and still fine. So I involved them more in the kitchen. I'd do stuff with him. I'd play with more recipes. And then the more I started playing in March, I was like, oh, this is fun. Okay, I'm getting back into the groove of things because I'd stopped cooking for a while, got back into the groove of things. And by April, as the lockdown was like hardening and we weren't sure about what was happening, I was suffering from a business loss that I could see was about to happen. So I'm also healing through that. No one knows. I was like suffering from, what's happening? Every month you think that you can pay salaries and then you get to the end of the month and no, you can't. You can't even afford rent, ma'am. Why are you forcing this? And a juice business has a lot of running costs. So I'm going through that where I could see the trajectory of the business. And I'm like, I'm just going to cook. I can't go to work. It's limited allowance for me to go into the factory. Let me just cook.
Sure. That's all I can control.
That is literally all I can control. And I did that. Just that. Actually, my grandfather passed away while Maruo was in hospital. After Maruo got out of hospital, so we couldn't go see him.
Sure.
So the love of one love of my life passes away. We go into lockdown. We're healing from that. You can't see your grandparents. You can't see your family. I just stayed in the kitchen, guys. I was just pumping everything.
Let's just make dombolo every day.
Let's just make dombolo every day. Let's just see what we can do. And it was literally that, like a lot of emotions.
And it wasn't even a business then.
No.
Sure.
I think I'd partnered with maybe Woolies once or twice, one or two brands, like Snowflake. But it was more like, this is fun, but I've got a real baby to concentrate on, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
But everything's intentional. Nothing is
intentional.
Wasted. You wrote a beautiful caption when you said, I think you had just turned 30, which is last year, no?
Yeah.
Last year. And you said, I'm in my body. Did I write? I'm in tune with my body. What did you mean by that?
I really am. When I turned 30, I felt like a switch went on.
I can't wait. For me, I'm turning 30 in January.
Oh my word.
But I can already feel the process. I know it's not going to be an instant, but I can feel the process of how much I am tuning into myself. So that's why I'm just like, what does that mean? What did you mean?
In hindsight. So I always like speaking in hindsight.
Yeah.
In hindsight, now I look back, I'm like, I was working on it. Growth is very messy, right?
Yeah.
Hey, before 30 was messy, guys. Oh, wow. Growth is messy, and when you get to that point where it makes sense,
it's like,
that was 30. It was like on the day, something just went click.
It's just like, it's been here all along.
This has been me this whole time.
Yeah.
But I think about it and how intentional it was. Like I found my my one therapist who, she literally changed my life. 6 months before my birthday.
Yeah.
So I was in therapy for a long time before I turned 30. Just going through all of that stuff that I needed to take out, Maruo stuff. And even just discussing him, it wasn't a big thing. He wasn't it.
Yeah.
It was more around the childhood stuff. Before 30, I didn't love myself the way I love myself now.
Sure.
I lacked a lot of self-love and a lot of confidence. And I always looked for it through validation in my marriage, which is now in hindsight, I'm like, nah, not even through other people.
It's like a recipe for disaster.
Not even through other people, through other things. But truthfully speaking, like, because I got married young, I'd always be like, baby, what are we doing? What are we doing together?
Yes.
Yes.
Like it always has to be. And
and when it didn't happen, my world would
just like
shatter.
I just saw, while you're there quickly, I saw we watched a video by Casey Neistat with his wife, and they made an analogy of marriage, and he put two circles together, and you know how they intertwine? And he said, that small piece in the middle, that's the us.
Yes.
But take
everything
care of,
else.
Yeah, like take care, have you, and then we come together. But once it's more of the one or more of the one, then it's messy. And we're just like, it's like click, like, okay, so the us is just the coming together of the different parties. But everyone has to have their own identity.
Yes.
Continue.
So gaining my own identity, 30 is when I literally got in tune with myself. And I say my body there, but it was actually myself. Like, I could feel it would say, no, man, this is who you are. Like, start appreciating the person you're with. But I also don't take for granted the years and the experience that I've had to go through, right?
Yeah.
They're very necessary. But it took me so long to realize that I didn't need validation from this thing. I didn't need validation from my businesses. I'd gained, Fruitel I'd put my identity in Fruitel. That's why it was so difficult for me to let go. It felt like a literal grief and loss. I was just sitting in it and like, I'm a failure.
Yeah. And we have to separate ourselves from our business. Someone told me that, Miles Kubek, and was like, you're not your business, you know that. And I was like, don't say that, I am.
No, you're not. And that's the biggest lesson that Fruitel gave me. It taught me that I'm not my business.
Yeah.
I need to have a separate identity from it. Because the moment I lost the business, I couldn't think and dream outside of it. I couldn't function.
Sure.
I was like, I attached the failure to I was like, I'm a failure.
I'm the failure, yeah.
And it's not
am
me.
a failure, yeah.
It's not me. Now I'm like, no, I'm not the failure. It was the business, but it wasn't even a failure. It was just a stepping stone into other
growth,
things, right? Yeah. And 30, from there, like, I now go on like solo holidays. I take solitude in being by myself. One thing my therapist would always try and tell me and like appreciate is, one, reward yourself.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, and the biggest issue is no one validated us, right? We love the way that we were validated in the past. And I was never validated as a kid. So now as an adult, you're looking for that validation outside.
Everywhere,
even with the reward, like good things that you do. So if Feed My Tribe has a campaign, you don't even celebrate that stuff. You don't even say, I did really well.
Yeah.
So she was like, you need to go out. Take yourself out for a piece of cake. If you do something really well that day, let's say you sat on your balcony and enjoyed that moment.
Yeah.
Go out and say, wow, okay,
that.
I'll have a chocolate cake just to celebrate this little moment. It's something to celebrate, and you're validating the moment, you're validating yourself, and your presence and your growth. So it was literally that, like, this, I know 30 onwards is my growth phase, and it has nothing to do with anyone. Like, I cannot explain the journey to you. I cannot explain the journey to my husband or my kids.
Yeah.
But they know, they can see it, they can feel it. And it's where I'm most comfortable. I've never felt more comfortable than I am right now.
Wow. I love that.